Stroud, 9 miles south of Gloucester, at the western edge of the Cotswolds, is a town of 12,000 people. Stroud High Street on a Saturday morning in the summer. Leading off the High Street is the area known as the Shambles. But few of these people realise that in the churchyard beyond the gates lies the body of one of the last men in England to be killed in a duel. This is his tragic story. The year was 1807. Britain was at war with France. The British Army was nearly 700,000 strong, and to keep it up to strength there was a constant nationwide recruiting campaign. On the afternoon of August the 14th, 2 of the officers recruiting in the Stroud area were off duty. Benjamin Hazel was the lieutenant in the King's 3rd Regiment. He was 28 and came from near Cork in Ireland. Joseph Francis Delmond was a lieutenant in the King's 82nd Regiment. He was 22 years old.
I heard that the casualty rate out there is rising. The French are a formidable enemy these days by all accounts. Still, until we have to go back, I must join the social world.
The walk has started in a friendly manner, and continued so until Delmond made a remark, thought to be about a mutual female friend.
That remark was uncalled for. Retract it immediately.
I will not. It's absolutely true.
Retract it, I say.
I have no intention of retracting it. It's true, and you absolutely know it is.
I know nothing of the kind. Will you retract?
No.
Very well, then we must settle this with a duel.
Swords or pistols?
Pistols, I think.
They returned to town. They knew that a 3rd officer, Lieutenant John Sargent, was dining that evening in a house called the Grange, and wanted him to act as second. They sent for him.
Now, my lads, do you know the Grange?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We'll go there and ask to speak to Lieutenant John Sargent. Tell him that Lieutenant Hazel requests that he come here immediately. Do it well, and you shall have this.
Yes, sir.
Duelling had long been the established way of settling differences between gentlemen, especially army, and to the lesser extent naval officers. It was made illegal in most European countries, including Britain, early in the 16th century. But because the church and the judiciary relied heavily upon the support of the aristocracy, it was tolerated for another 2 centuries, with few prosecutions and even fewer convictions. However, by the beginning of the 19th century, the rise of industrial wealth and the decline of the power of the hereditary upper class led to great change. The Church strongly condemned duelling as a practice equally abhorrent to reason, humanity and religion. The courts became much more willing to prosecute not only the protagonists but anyone found assisting or merely observing. Even a doctor attending a wounded man could be taken to court if he had prior knowledge of the event. That was the state of affairs when Sargent was called from his dinner here at the Grange. The house was demolished a few years ago, but at that time was the home of Mr. George Wathen. John Sargent was a lieutenant in His Majesty's 61st Regiment. He was from Newham on the Severn. not far from Stroud.
Well, what is so urgent?
Off you lads! Lieutenant Delmond and I have had a disagreement, and we determined to settle it with a duel. We wish you to be our second.
A duel? Are you both mad? I'll have no truck with it.
We are set on this. We cannot agree otherwise. We must have a second to attend. Will you agree?
No, this is lunacy.
We must do this honourably, and as an officer, you know how important it is. You must help.
We will go to a quiet place where no one will see.
All right. This is madness, but I'll do it.
Although all three were army officers, they did not possess pistols. Hazel and Sergeant went to Stroud to find some. What happened next would have been farcical if the outcome had not been so serious. Hazel went first to Mr. Samuel Jenner, who lived in the upper part of Stroud. He was a bookseller and a publisher, and a keeper of rare birds.
Ah, Lieutenant Hazel, is it not? What can I do for you?
I'm looking for some pistols, too. Lieutenant Delmond and I had to settle a bet by shooting at a target. I hear you might have some. Can you help?
Pistols? No, I have no pistols, sorry.
Sergeant was a little more successful when he visited Thomas Howell, a blacksmith and landlord of the Green Dragon Inn.
A word?
Hey?
I have a couple of friends who require some pistols. Do you have any?
I don't know. I'll have to have a look. This one here.
No, this is no good. Too dirty.
Oh,
Thank you.
Pity.
Sergeant then called on Samuel Jenner, but got the same reply. It was now 7 o'clock and their need was becoming pressing. They met, and after a few more unproductive calls, returned to Thomas Howell to say they would accept his pistol if he could find another. Howell knew of one and sent his journeyman, William Hewlett, to borrow it. The next problem? Where to get sufficient shot and powder. Again, Thomas Howell came to their aid. He and his family scoured the house and were able to find just 2 balls and sufficient powder. The 3 officers came to this field behind the Grange. By now it was nearly 8 o'clock. This duel would not be fought in the cold light of dawn, but on a summer's evening.
Okay, gentlemen, get ready. Delmond, are you still determined upon this?
Yes, I am.
Hazel, are you of like mind?
Yes.
William Hewlett, Howell's journeyman, had not believed Sergeant's story and followed the 3 men to the field. There he had met George Bryant, a labourer working in the adjacent field.
You will take 6 paces on my count. Turn and fire. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hazel and Sergeant now realised the enormity of what had happened. A properly conducted duel would have been bad enough, but now even those barbaric rules had been broken. Delmond had been shot before he had turned his face to his opponent. This was murder. A surgeon, Mr. Sweeting, had been told of the duel,
Hurry, for pity's sake, hurry!
perhaps by Bryant and Hewlett. Meanwhile, Sergeant had returned here to the Grange. The occupants had heard the gunshot and he explained what had happened. Perhaps out of a sense of guilt, or maybe genuine concern, he then returned to Delmond still lying in the field. He was there when Mr. Sweeting arrived.
Thank God you're here, Doctor. Our theory is done for.
Let me see. Now hold still.
This is an awful thing that's happened. I can scarce believe I'm part of it.
Seeing what had happened, Hewlett and Bryant had gone to Badbrook Dye House nearby and borrowed a skallet, a dyer's hand barrow, to use as a stretcher.
We thought this might help, Doctor. Good man. Good man.
Delmond was brought here to his lodgings in King Street. It was then the home of Mrs. Hyde, but is now an optician's. Here Mr. Sweeting, assisted by, according to contemporary report, all the medical gentlemen of Stroud, attempted to save his life. However, after lingering for 4 days, he died on August 18th. Ironically, one of the people trying to save his life, Nurse Elizabeth Meany, inadvertently hastened his end. She mistook the lotion which he had been given to bathe his wounds for a medicine and gave it to him to drink. The next day, August the 19th, a coroner's inquest on the body returned a verdict of wilful murder. Warrants for the arrest of Hazel and Sargent and a reward of 20 guineas, or £21, was offered for each of them. On August the 21st, at 6 o'clock in the evening, Lieutenant Joseph Francis Delmond of His Majesty's 82nd Regiment was buried here with full military honours. His coffin was borne by fellow recruiting officers. There was a large crowd of mourners. What happened to Hazel and Sargent? After running from the field, Hazel came to the yard of the White Horse Inn, which was approximately here at the cross, then went on foot along the canal towpath to Cirencester. From there he went to London. It is thought that he fled to the West Indies, where he died shortly afterwards. Sargent left Mr. Sweeting attending to Delmond and returned once more to the Grange. Here he changed into civilian clothes before taking a horse and riding to London. There, on August the 16th, 2 days after the event, he called upon Delmond's father to tell him what had happened. It seems he then went to America. He is thought to have returned secretly to England some years later to visit his father before returning to America, where he died. And what about the other person who played a major part in bringing about this tragedy, Thomas Howell, who made the whole thing possible by providing the weapons? He seems to have escaped any form of retribution. The Green Dragon Inn, of which he was the landlord, stood here in King Street, where Halford's now stands. In 1813, he bought a woolen mill. When he died at the age of 67 in 1827, he was buried here, just a few yards from Joseph Delmond. Stroud has changed a great deal since 1807. Most of the places which played a part in this piece of history had disappeared under the march of progress. The builders of this estate in Uplands have at least provided us with a reminder. Delmond, when he died, became something of a local hero, so perhaps fitting that he should be remembered in a road name. What is surprising is that the villain of this piece should be honoured in the same way. Surely there cannot be many roads in Britain named after murderers. But was he the villain or just a foolish, nervous man?